Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more History Matters. This time, a question that I've been wondering myself. Why didn't Greece get Constantinople after World War I? A short animated documentary. For those that don't know, really the name Istanbul is a relatively new thing. That didn't become a thing, I believe, until like 1928 or something. I think was when the name change happened. Up until then, the Turks even called it Constantinople, or it was like Constantiniye. Turkish way of saying it, I believe. I think Constantinople is the Greekish, that different way of saying it. I don't know. I'm not, I'm not a Greek historian or a Turkish historian, so. Anyways, I'm curious about this. I'm curious what the answer could. Before we dive in, though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Alright, let's just go ahead, dive right in, and get the answer to this fucking question.
Constantinople used to be the centre of the Greek-speaking world. It sat as
Hell, used to be kind of the center of the Western world in its entirety.
the capital of the Roman Empire and later the Ottoman Empire, which, as you'll know, came to a spectacular end after it joined the Central Powers in World War I. After its defeat, the Entente planned to carve it up like this, notably removing Constantinople and not giving it to the Greeks who very much wanted it. Which raises the question, why? Why wasn't Greece given Constantinople after World War I? So first, some background. When the Ottomans joined the First World War, Russian leadership got very excited, because to them, when they won, they would finally be getting their hands on Constantinople, something which they had coveted forever and would help cement their position as the Third Rome. And it would also open up access to the Mediterranean for them. The other great powers in the Entente accepted this concession because they really needed Russia. However, Russia would never control the city because in 1917 it was time for a communist revolution. So who would get it afterwards? Well, the Entente largely ignored the issue until the Ottomans were well and truly broken. At this point, they negotiated the Treaty of Sèvres, which divided the empire up like this, and
which, by the way, the British and French were supposed to give I believe these lands were supposed to go towards, for one, the British, I believe, had begun promising Jews a state, so there's another broken promise, and a unified Arabia, another broken promise. I don't know if they promised anything to the Kurds. This looks like actually this looks like actually it would have been a Kurdish nation. Like maybe they did talk about having a independent Kurdistan back then.
Constantinople was to become an international zone just like the Saarland. Greece wasn't given a look in for several reasons. The first was that international zone meant British in all but name, who, as of the occupation, had a veto on all laws passed by the Ottoman government. And also, by gaining Constantinople, Britain would have control over every entrance to the Mediterranean, which sounded very useful to them.
Yeah, oh shit, I didn't think of it this. I completely forgot about that. Okay, Britain, you fucking dicks.
And thus, it was not something that they were willing to give up. The second reason was that Greece wasn't seen as important enough to own the city. Constantinople was one of the great cities of the world, and Greece was a reluctant ally which wasn't exactly on the best terms with the Entente.
Damn, the disrespect to one of the oldest nations and cultures in the world. Britain, your culture is younger than the Greek culture, yo.
Greeks had pushed to gain this territory, collectively known as the Megali Plan. The Entente were content to give them some of this, but Constantinople was a step too far, whose inclusion would have made Greece into a middling European power overnight. Furthermore, the victors didn't quite buy Greece's claim to the city under the guise of them being the successors of Byzantium. British leaders saw Greece not as the continuation of an ancient legacy, but as a modern nation-state like Romania, and one whose German king had no right to claim the inheritance of Rome.
Oh, hold on. Could the whole aspect of their king being German have screwed Greece out of this? Could this be the reason? Could this be like one of a more important reason than perhaps they're kind of alluding to here? Because, Britain just fought a fucking war against the Germans? I wonder. I'm curious.
And the third reason is the really important one. The Turkish had other plans. Whilst the Ottoman government begrudgingly accepted
Never mind.
partition, the Turkish people did not. Resistance movements sprang up quickly and soon came together under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal. He defeated the Greeks in the west, who had landed to take control of their new territory, as well as the French in the south. Kemal marched on Constantinople, where he was presented with an ultimatum: withdraw or face total war, which the British government was happy to do alongside their steadfast allies, who had just abandoned them since this wasn't seen as important enough, and also everyone had had enough of war at this point.
Yeah.
As such, Plan B: resign and let your successor deal with it. This led to the Allies signing the Treaty of Lausanne, which finalised the new nation of Turkey's borders. And as you'll note, Greece wasn't able to get Constantinople because now it was firmly Turkey's.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this episode.
So, I wonder what would have happened. Because obviously the Turks did do forced migration, I believe. So, like, no longer were there... no long. I mean, I don't know how long it took, but Constantinople probably wasn't Greek for quite some time. Was no longer majority Greek after quite some time. Because I mean, when the Ottomans conquered it, in 1453, there were only 50,000. I think 50,000 people inside the walls of Constantinople. So I don't think it took long for the Turks to outnumber the Greeks living in that city. So yeah, you know what? I think it ultimately does make sense why Greece didn't get Constantinople back, but also, I feel like I understand why the British would do that, but in my mind, it's like you support the Greeks there, the formerly historical owners of Constantinople. They haven't owned it since 1453, but you give it back to them, you gain yourself an ally in the region. Now, of course, Greece is like has some economic issues, especially in the modern day. But like, I think giving it to them would have helped Greece in their stability, you know. But ultimately, you know, it probably would have broken out into a war between Greece and Turkey at that point, because the Greeks wouldn't have given up Constantinople to Mustafa Kemal's demands. So Mustafa Kemal would have marched on them, and then we had a local regional war, and that could get turned bad because of the Greek and Turkish animosity towards one another, especially after the events of World War One, with definite forced migration of multiple cultures there, because the Greeks were also part of that forced migration. It wasn't just the Armenians, I believe. So, yeah. Ooh, could have gotten real bad. But maybe it's for the best that Greece did not regain Constantinople after World War One. Well, that was a short animated documentary by History Matters. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.